But I think the thing about performance that we sometimes forget about on the screen, which we rarely forget about when we're watching a live stage performance, is that I'm looking at someone, for a lot of it. Yes, there are, of course, many scenes where Ayana's on her own, but I'm opposite Joshua Boone, who played Isaiah, or Michelle Wilson, who played Ayana's mother, or, the gang of girlfriends, and they're giving so much. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about performance, is that there's an energy exchange that's happening. So yes, the camera is just, because the camera really we can only see one image at a time on the screen, but what was really happening in that moment is that there was energy being shot from all different directions.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Zora Howard is an actor. She sat down with me in New York City to talk about the work.
I saw Premature and I was blown away by your performance.
Thank you.
Just blown away by it. Yesterday, though, I started just looking into your spoken word stuff on YouTube, and I was just crying. I was walking around my apartment, crying, I would watch a little bit, pause, walk around, cry.
That doesn't sound pleasant at all.
And then I was thinking, why am I crying? Why am I crying? Why am I crying? And it was something about I was just met with this art, your art. Then I found that Stew is happening. I thought Stew, your play Stew, was going to be happening later in the year. I don't know why. I don't know why I got that impression. So I begged them to let me go. And I was blown away by the play. But I really can't recall seeing a performance like Premature, in particular in this one capacity. It felt like you were giving me, and by me I mean the audience, something every single second. You were presenting information to us, and it, mostly without words, every single second. And I don't. Now there's many performances that are alive that I love. The people are alive. I'm not talking about you being alive. You were certainly alive. But you were giving me, I watched it again last night. I was like, what is this? So what I was talking about there was something you were doing without words a lot of the time. But words seem to be very important to you. And I want to know when your love affair with text began, with words.
Very, very young. Very young. I love to read. And I grew up in a household where both of my parents also loved to read. And when my grandfather passed away, my father inherited his library, which literally takes up we live in Harlem in a limestone, and it takes up an entire floor, the library. And I remember I used to visit my grandfather, and I would plead with him to lend me the books he had, because it was really, and I was a kid, and I didn't know that one day we would just have those, so I've just always been surrounded by books. And I think, like so many people who love books, it's a place we go to escape, a place we go to be inspired, to dream of worlds, beyond the world that we live in. And I wanted to do that. I loved it so much, and then I wanted to do it myself. So the reading and the writing kind of was happening at the same time, because I felt so powerful in writing that I could make whatever, and I'm very avid. My mind, my imagination was always, and it came out in a lot of different ways. I was drawing all the time as well, but just wanting to kind of make the worlds that I saw in my head. And it seemed like I quickly found that the easiest way to do that was to write it down. So that's when it all began. And I can't remember a time before that in my life. I think the earliest memory I have of myself, maybe I was 4 years old, is I can kind of remember being 4, seeing myself at 4. I probably had a book in my hand. So I don't remember a life before that love. and I love so much that I've, fashioned my career, everything after it, I don't, I think, some of us know like what we are meant to be here and do, what we are called to do, and mine is very tangled up in words. My calling is, sometimes I speak them, but most of the time I'm writing them.
And what about acting? Where did acting come in, and where did you first decide to go down that road?
Almost at the same time, because the thing about the writing for me is that, again, it was like bringing these worlds to life. So yes, they are alive on the page, but they're even more alive when they're spoken aloud. So kind of at the same time that I was starting to write, create my own written pieces, I was sharing them with my family, doing little performances in the house, for my mom and my aunts and my grandma and everybody. And I was speaking the words that I had written. So that's theater, right? And so I'm a little kid, and then I'm involving my cousins, and I'm getting other players, and they're speaking the words that I've written or they're, that I've dictated. And that's a play. And I didn't know it then. I was also involved at the Harlem School of the Arts, an organization that still exists to this day, alive and strong, from a very young age. And I was still, my parents had me in all the classes, because at that time, they had scholarship programs. So I was, taking dance and taking violin and also singing and theater's what stuck. So these two things were happening, kind of outside the house and in the home at the same time. And most of what I was writing, this goes to the poetry piece, were pieces written for one individual voice that I would usually perform. Sometimes it was kind of me speaking from my own experience in the first person. A lot of the times it was me speaking, creating characters and speaking those words. And that's kind of the spoken word thread, which I still is very much, still alive in my life. But because I was also taking these theater classes and became very involved in the theater, there was a point, I don't remember when, where that one voice split into two. Or somebody responded to that one voice, somebody responded to me, and then I had to write that. And then somebody responded to them, and now we're in a three-way conversation. I had to write all three. And slowly but surely that became, a play. And because I was reading all these plays, going back to the reading, I was learning, about structure, and learning about dialogue and how things looked on the page when it came to stage plays, and mimicking that, on the computer at home. So that's kind of, and then eventually, formal education came in. The Harlem School of the Arts is really a wonderful organization. They had, for all different ages, starting I think at the age of 3, they start classes, taking, introductory courses into these different disciplines. And then they also have a college prep program, which I was a part of. So you're kind of, at the age of 13 through 17, 18, you're getting this kind of conservatory level training, these great artists. So I was involved with that, and then I went to LaGuardia High School, and that was a very kind of formal, stringent education training as well, although it was a lot of fun. I had so much fun in high school, at the Fame School. And then I took a little detour when I got to college. I didn't study theater or creative writing immediately. I studied comp lit, and that goes back to the love of reading, that I just wanted to read more. I wanted to be introduced to more authors. I particularly wanted to read and know more about Black people and Black people throughout the diaspora. I feel like I had a lot of that education in my household. I learned a lot of that from my father especially, and I wanted more. So that's what I did in undergrad. But the theater bug came back. It never really went away. And then I went to graduate school and got my MFA in acting. So that's been the, I don't know if that's the question you asked, but that has been the journey.
And you met Rashaad Ernesto Green early on in your life. He put you in some shorts, right? And then you guys decided recently to get together and really write your first feature together. And that's what Premature is. And I've heard you talk about, you know, that process with him of writing that, and then you guys actually going out and what we have here is real New York film.
Mm-hmm.
You film New York,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about this love story. But because you created this character and you're actually performing it, what exactly did you need from Rashaad in the moment to help you bring this out?
Well, I can't see. You know, when I'm on set, I'm in it. You know, I'm trying to be, I want to be inside of Ayanna, so I don't have that outside vision. I'm not thinking about all the pieces. I couldn't. I learned that very early on in the actual like shooting of the film, that I had to really create distance on set between that creative self and my actor self, so that I could do the work that I needed to do.
Because it can get overwhelming if you
Absolutely.
You
I mean, if you're thinking about everything, you're thinking about story, you're thinking about time, you're thinking about location, permit, like it's you're thinking about, will we get the shot? The sun is setting. That's not the line that I wrote that other actor said. You know, you got a lot of stuff. So I had to quiet all of that noise so that I could, you know, really give myself over to Ayanna in the way that she was owed. And that's why I needed a director. There had to be that trust that, because we created this thing together, that he knew what we needed to tell the story that we intended to tell. To trust that he would get what he needed. And that's from me, and that's from everyone.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't delivering, if I wasn't, you know, from the minutia of, you know, angles and positioning and timing to the deeper stuff of story and impulse and her overall arc, while we were shooting, you know, I needed that part of my mind. It was reserved for something else. It was reserved for performance. And we talked about that, Rashaad and I, before, because it was always our plan to write this thing together. He would be directing and I would be leading. We knew that from the very beginning, and that never changed. So it was a conversation pretty early on in the process that, and I believe this deeply, that when we got on set, that he would be the director and I would be the lead. And we would respect, now that doesn't mean that we didn't, you know, make that relationship unique to what we had going on and what our process was thus far, the fact that we were co-writers. So maybe it was not as a traditional director, lead actor relationship, because I did have, yes, input or other elements of the filmmaking, but when we were shooting, that was the dynamic that we were honoring, because it's also, there's a lot of other people on set.
Yeah.
You know, there are my castmates, and they need to be able to look to a director as well. And there's you know, an entire crew, and they need to be able to look to a director. And we had very little time, you know, and a lot of work to do in that very little time. So we had to, you know, kind of make sure we were getting what we needed to get done, and also modeling that, creating the environment rather on set, so that everybody was inspired and kind of like, all right, we're going to get what we need to get done, because we kind of know who's leading us in this.
And you were also shooting, and I'm imagining stealing some locations and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
as one would do when they're making an independent film in New York. And like, you guys were even kicked out of the Metro North station and stuff like that.
Yes, we were.
Is that the last shot? Is that the last shot?
It is the last shot, and it was the second to last day, and so that means, and we didn't get the shot we needed, which actually didn't end up in the film, but there was one. I think it was the tight on Isaiah, I think. So the flip of what we had gotten, and we were like, we need to know, we need to get that. And I remember that day I was so devastated. But that's another one of those, but we have to trust that there are other people involved in this process.
Yeah.
There are producers involved. There
Yeah.
are the AD, like that. We're going to get what we need. I just had to trust. But when that happened, oh my
Yes.
God.
When I said what I said about you giving me information, there's also this through line of sadness that she has. It's almost like you're breaking hearts moment to moment. Does any of that make sense, or is that all stuff that
It
is
sense. It makes
afterwards?
perfect sense, especially because we hear Ayanna doesn't actually speak so much.
Yeah.
There's only one scene where she's not in the scene in the entire film. So she's on camera a lot, but she doesn't speak. We don't actually hear her, as much as maybe we hear Isaiah or some of the other characters. But I think the thing about performance that we sometimes forget about on the screen, which we rarely forget about when we're watching a live stage performance, is that I'm looking at someone, for a lot of it. Yes, there are, of course, many scenes where Ayanna's on her own, but I'm opposite Joshua Boone, who played Isaiah, or Michelle Wilson, who played Ayanna's mother, or, the gang of girlfriends, and they're giving so much.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about performance, is that there's an energy exchange that's happening. So yes, the camera is just, because the camera really we can only see one image at a time on the screen, but what was really happening in that moment is that there was energy being shot from all different directions. And then we're in a space, a lot of this film is shot, like you said, on the streets of New York City, on the streets of Harlem, and there's activity, and there's a lot to feed off of as a performer. So I certainly take the compliment, but I wasn't doing it all by myself. I had these beautiful, brilliant actors that were, performing opposite of me, and a lot of it was just response. A lot of it was trying, in the way that we all do as actors, to be very true to who we have built in this, who we have created in this character, and then respond from that.
I saw Stu last night, your play. So you have this movie coming out, and your play is ending. And it can't end. It needs to move on. This thing is so amazing. These 4 performances in this thing, these amazing actors, this amazing play. I mean, it's so dumb. I'm just gushing on and on, but it was amazing. I hate things. I hate most things. I hate things.
You're saying it, but I know that you're a lover of things. I can feel it.
I am? Okay. All right, you got me.
Yes.
But when things are bad, I hate them, though.
Well,
I can love things.
Yes.
Now, this is the first play to really come to New York, I think, right?
Yes, off-Broadway premiere.
Yeah. But you've written other plays.
Yes.
Do you picture yourself in the play?
Not up until this point. Not
Not
so
even
far.
Stu. Not Stu.
No. Well, the thing about Stu is that I just, for so long, I didn't think anyone would produce it. So I wasn't thinking about anybody acting in it. Now, I know there's a role for me in Stu, but I was so excited about just sitting in the playwright's chair and just serving the process as a playwright, and kind of, of course, pulling on everything I know as an actor and letting that inform how I, showed up in the room as a playwright, and wanting to just be there for the actors and listen, and because they make the play better. They've made the play so much better because they're the ones that have to do it every single night. And then they're also, these women are, out of this world.
Yes.
And they're veterans in the theater scene, and just beautiful actors.
Yes.
So they had so much to give. And just coming off of Premature, it's just a different experience when you have written something and you're also in it.
Because Premature is getting this attention, both because you wrote the script and for your incredible performance, and you've got this play that came out, and people are giving you recognition that you deserve as a writer. Which path do you ideally want to take? And does it have to be one path? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you answered it. That's it. Is that I think I'm on the path that I want to be on, which is, it's really how I'm a creator. So how can I best serve whatever project I'm working on at any given moment? And some projects, some stories, I feel passionately that this is my story to write.
Yeah.
Because when that happens, it's like the word, they write themselves. They don't get out of my head. I see them always.
Yeah.
But there are some where it's not my vision, but I know that I can live in this story. I know that I can bring this story to life. And those are the projects where I want to be as an actor. And I've also directed, and there are projects where I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to find the way that other people can see a project or can experience something because I love it so much and I'm so moved by it. And that's that's the producerial space. So
yeah.
I think, as long as they are stories that at the core I believe need to be told.
Yeah.
As long as I believe that when I am working on something, then it'll be clear to me how I'm supposed to serve.
Yes. Zora Howard, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.